Right.
Fast forward a little bit, if you could, to
Okay.
ended up with like, did you meet Thomas first? Did he approach you? How did you guys end up saying, oh, listen, I got this comic book idea. I know you haven't, kind of how did that initial bubble? And is this your first adventure? Is this your first venture? Did I miss one or two up until this point? I'm sorry if I did.
Oh, no. You're, there's actually, okay, so 2 years ago, when was it? Like 2020, right? I have an English and art school here in Japan. I run it by myself. And I closed it down for 1 month because everybody was closing everything. So I was like, well, there's no point for me having my school open when nobody's coming. So I closed it down for a month and decided during that time I was going to try something. I was like, I'm not going to waste this month. And just so happened at that time, Geeks and Gamers had started up their homepage. So I hopped on there and I found a guy who was looking for a comic artist. I was like, comic artist, it's your time. It's time to try it. That thing that you've always been scared of doing. So he said, I sent him a message and he said, send me back some, do like a spread of two superheroes fighting each other. So I did something and sent it his way and he really, really liked it. And we decided that we're going to work on something and we got the ball rolling. But that's still going on in the background, but we haven't really pursued it as much as I think both of us would have liked to have. But that's something that might happen in the future. But we kind of took a little bit of a hiatus. And during that time, I was like, I got to keep on drawing. I've started this ball rolling. I need to keep on working. And I was on a Nerdrotics member stream, and Thomas, who's the writer for the comic book that I'm working on right now, he was also on that stream. And he heard the stream that I was an artist, and he was looking for somebody to illustrate his story that he's been working on for about 10 years, I believe. And afterwards, he's like, he DM'd me, and we got together through that, and that was about a year ago, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
The birth
There
of
it is.
Ante? Do you print it Ante?
So
Steam Junk Western.
Yeah, he's a poker dealer. That's what he does full time. And so we actually met up at the Vegas meetup last year. The first Geeks and Gamers Nerdrotic one last year. And so we've been working at that diligently. And yeah. So it's been up for about 20 days now. We've got 26 backers there. And
yeah, they got their money flowing. $5 away from 25. Look at that. 5 from 2,500. Yeah, almost. So let's run through this trailer a little bit.
Sure.
I gotta do it again. Sorry, there's all these little semantics with freaking StreamYard.
Like audio.
You have to,
yeah. I always get it wrong.
Share audio, and then even then, half the time, the tech wizard that some people think that I might actually be, it completely comes to light whenever I realize that it is not actually playing audio. So we'll see how it goes. So yeah, it's really cool. They have a little trailer for their first issue. Yeah. Can you hear the audio okay?
Yes, I can.
Country is at war. The Union has formed its own faction. For those of you who are just listening, not watching, the society is ruled by a strict code of laws. Got some graphics in the background. No names are given. Only titles. Fade in. Oh, wow. The instructor looks like death itself. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah. Very cool design on that, by the way. The general, typical eye patch. Lovely eye patch. Yeah. We need more eye patches in the world, James.
Oh, yeah. Can't have enough.
One can rise in the ranks, or by one mishap, fall from grace. He can't be trusted. Look at those eyes. That's a Western villain if I ever saw one. Looks like he might even be some. He's got some screwy teeth like myself. So yeah, he definitely is a villain.
Yeah.
I'm very biased towards your art because my gateway drug was Frank Miller, and
I love Frank Miller.
He did he did work with Bill Sienkiewicz. If I said it wrong. in Electra Assassin,
Ah,
and it has your it's a Western style. It's a Western with some of that style from that Electra Assassin comic that I
mm,
got into literally from my gateway, like very early on. So cool.
thank you.
So there's a link to this in the description if you can't watch right now. If you're just listening, it goes on a little bit. It talks about full color, gives you some sample spreads, which we're going to scroll down and look at all that. So we're not going to use the little trailer to do that.
Oh yeah,
So
probably,
yeah, there's their cover. At least
yeah.
60 pages, 52 pages of story, 5 pages of opening narration. So we'll get a little setup.
Right.
Thomas Stenger, who, by the way,
I,
Thomas did reach back out to me, so we'll be able to have him on as well, and we can talk about the
oh,
development of
cool.
the story and that kind of thing. So that works out well.
Nice.
And talks a little bit about who the characters are, setting up in the Civil War, some of the
Hmm.
different illustrations, the great use of color contrast here. I mean, there's like 20 different colors happening in this panel, in this
It's
page.
it's crazy though because I really limit my color palette to I usually have like maybe maximum 6 or 7 colors maximum,
Nope,
but I just
not
try
this
to get
time.
as much out of them as I can.
Yeah. Yeah. James Harris, the traditional artist. Everything is created with physical pencils, inks, and colors. Awesome. Yeah, I was just going to with Dan last night how he's reverted. He's gone full circle, and now he's gone back to hand drawing and then scanning it in to color it. Just because he's
Yeah.
like, I just want to make sure I have my stuff. I want to have that experience. I was missing it.
Yep.
This panel, by the way, is so emotional. Like when I got to
Yeah,
that, when I got to this page, that progression in that panel, I
mhm.
was like, wow, I'm in.
Yeah, I'm trying like it's a very like this it's a very story driven comic like so I'm trying my not every page is going to have all kinds of like s- crazy stuff in your face, but what I'm trying to do as much as possible is kind of have my artwork as the frame for the story. The story is the picture, and my artwork is the frame. And I don't want the story to get lost with like too much confusion and like uh, just being too overdone with action. One problem I have with Japanese manga is it's just too confusing. I can't follow what's going on in the story. It's so confusing for the pages, just all the action going on that I just it just doesn't do it for me. So I'm really trying to kind of hold back in places, but where it's necessary, every once in a while, just throw in that one, you know, extreme action, a lot of movement in there because I do like my if I do like individual pictures, there's
Mm-hmm.
usually going to be a lot of kinetic energy in there, a lot of movement, which again, I kind of get from my influences such as Kent Williams and Bill Sake that guy.
did
Yeah.
so as you guys work through the story, was there sort of some back and forth on character designs that you can share, or some things where you're like, you felt like you were hitting the mark here, and then Thomas is like, no, or maybe you were like, well, what about this? And he was like, you know what, I wasn't thinking that, but now I am. Give us a little bit of that behind the scenes on
Yeah.
some of that development. That's always
Okay.
kind of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Like from the beginning, he really didn't have the descriptions of the characters fleshed out. So I would just like, okay, I would read the story and I had my own image of what they look like. Like he didn't have like the color of hair
Mm-hmm.
or, certain facial features and everything. So it was really, it's kind of liberating on my part because it was almost like kind of like a jazz thing. We would play off of each other.
Mm-hmm.
So I would show him my designs. It's like, oh, I really like what's going on there, but why don't we add this? Okay, cool. So it's like maybe my image of what his characters are influencing his image of what they're like. So there's a lot of that that's been going on. But he does have specifics, like with, for example, the general. He wanted to have the eye patch on there, which it's very ironic that he has an eye patch on because in this story, if you lose a finger, if you get injured to the point where you can't be uh, uh, if you can't, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? I forget English all the time. Make a contribution to
Okay. If you're limited anyway, yeah.
you're out. You're gone. You're
Mm.
you're 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 sent out. You're an outcast. But this guy who is the general, who's the top of this society, has an eye missing. So it's just very ironic. But it kind of speaks to, I think, a lot of you know, politicians and people who get into power who actually don't fit
The
the
hypocritical
yes,
policymakers.
yes,
Yes.
yes. So
Hmm.
so I actually had an eye patch on a different character, but he's like, no, I want that on the general for specific purposes.
Hmm.
As far as some of the other characters go, he's really supportive of my artwork, and he really doesn't. From time to time, he'll like give me a little suggestion here or there, but for the most part, he's just like, I love what you're doing. Keep on rolling with it. And so for me, that's it's great and all. And I'm almost like, are you sure? Because I've never really done this before. But no, he's been really yeah, supportive of it. And but if he has something that he feels like, okay, maybe we should work on this. Like for example, the instructor, which is the the death looking character with the
Reaper.
sickle.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Grim Reaper. It's actually a woman. She, I had her starting off with like a darker hair because that's how I kind of visualized her. But he had her as like a different, like blonde hair with some gray streaks in it. So it's just little things like that. It's but it's great working with him though because we really get along. We have a lot of the same viewpoints and opinions of things. So it hasn't been this like at each other's throats. Not at all. Like zero. None of that
Hmm.
whatsoever.
No, I
And
understand.
when we met up in Vegas, I think what was really great is that we were actually able to meet in person because you can have a relationship with somebody on the internet over through YouTube, Twitter, but when you meet people in person, it makes that relationship so much stronger. And yeah, yeah. So to this point, there hasn't really been a whole lot, but just a little things here and there. But sorry, I can't give you anything more juicy.
No, you're fine. No, no, I don't. I didn't. I'm not even looking for juicy. I was just trying to because I think people sometimes are like, I have this comic idea, or I want to draw, or I want,
Right.
but it's like, okay, well, that's all fine, but all right, well, how do we help people move through some of what's going to happen next? Like, let them know. Well, there is this work in progress. Like maybe the
Right.
writer doesn't have specifics, and you're going to have to
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
create from scratch. And then
Yeah.
what happens when he gives you feedback? It's like, oh, he's going to
Hmm.
tell you, no, you can't have that character design, vice versa.
Right.
And I think part of us having a conversation, like you've gone through certain steps. Like if I talk
Right.
to Graham Nolan, I spent
Yeah.
time asking about like, well, how do you run a company now? How do you
Yeah.
do this? How do you, because maybe that's the next step for you and Thomas is like this big picture stuff of like, oh crap, now what
Yeah.
do I do? How
Yeah.
do I
Yeah.
juggle my hats? I have to run a
Hmm.
company. I have to go on YouTube and promote it. I have to,
Yep.
so at some point, someone has to ship this stuff, those kinds
Right.
of things.
Right.
So I
So
think there's so much value in
mhm,
this initial phase of
mhm,
creation of how you
yep.
guys sort of collaborate. And you said there was so much value in meeting face to face.
Yes. Yes.
What is one of the things that you like learned the most? Like you did not see this part of it coming. Maybe it was a challenge of the first book basically or something like that.
Yeah. Like well, the crazy part is I'm still going through all the challenges. This being the first one, so it feels like every single page I do, I'm like I'm upping my level.
Hmm.
I'm increasing my knowledge, getting my experience points, whatever you want to call it. But it feels like every single page is like a learning experience. I've never done like the whole storyboards and everything, and it was like, oh, storyboards easy. It's in my head. I'll just put it down on paper. One of the most challenging things is just organizing all of the panels. It's
Hmm.
just like I could sit there on one page could take a whole day, just because like you could see it in your mind, but when you're starting to put it down and like now these panels aren't working out. How do I arrange these panels? So I've constantly got comic books around me. I'm just looking at other people's stuff, seeing how they do it. Like Watchmen, the Watchmen, I've got that next to me. What's really like a very formal old comic book style, not
Yep.
really like panels overlapping or anything. But then the one, this is like my Bible right here. Like this to me is just pure beauty, and so I always have this over here because it's just I
Hold
just
up,
love how
hold it up
like
again for
that.
those of you who want to make sure
Yeah, year one,
this is Frank Miller's year one.
and
So I always
yeah,
talk about Miller as my gateway.
yeah.
I
Well,
would
he
not I
was
would not
yeah.
I would not be here if it wasn't for Dark Knight Returns, and then
Hmm.
which led me to year one, which led me down
Yeah,
the rabbit's hole of Elektra Assassin and Daredevil, and Yeah, it was the same thing for me. But
Yeah.
that style of storytelling for year one seems like a
Hmm.
great role model for your story because
Yes. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
art is a little different.
Hmm.
Also, it's very grounded, of course, right? So it's
Yeah.
Batman as a real
Right.
dude
Hmm.
dealing with actual hand to hand fighting in the
Yes.
alley. Your story is, yeah,
It's real people.
it's civil
Yeah,
war, but these are real
exactly.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. You just put into words what is in my head that I am not the I can't really express what's in here all the time like I want to, but you
Well,
just put it right.
that's why you're the artist.
Exactly. You just put that like right in what you just said right now was perfect. Exactly. That's why I love looking at this so much because it's grounded kind of like this reality, you know? It's
Hmm.
got this physical like Batman e- in this year one, like he's got the old style, you know, like the old costume on, but it just feels like very human, extremely human. And so when I'm looking at like the way that the people are illustrated in it, and I look at the panels, the use of light and dark, it just works.
Mm.
So I've always constantly got that nearby when I'm looking for inspiration or if I'm having trouble trying to organize panels or illustrate things. I think that's been one of the biggest challenges so far is just just organizing, going from storyboard point to the finished part. Um, and
It's
I've
funny.
seen other. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's funny you say that because it's like when I remember with my son when he was going to go into art stuff, and I think he was still in high school or maybe yeah, I think it was probably high school, and he's like, "Dad, we should just do a comic book together." And I had this idea, and
Yeah.
I wrote down a few things, and he's like, "Yeah, but okay, so tell me what you want me to draw." And I'm like, "Well, that's not exactly how this works. You kind of have to draw it. Like here, I'm telling you this, and this, and
Yeah.
this. Go
Yep.
draw it." It's
Yep.
like I know, but you need to tell me how to draw it. But what he meant was what you just said.
Right.
Am I drawing a big page? Am I
Right.
drawing a little panel here, a little panel there? Am
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
he can draw it, but he needed and for
Yeah.
you, you're like, well, this is yours. So how do
Right.
you want to do it? It's like a free for
Exactly.
all. And
Yep.
you're like, oh man, I have to really kind of think this through and what's working and what's not working. Again,
Yes.
another challenge that artists, yeah, they may be great artists, but can you tell a story
Exactly.
this way? Yeah.
Well, a great compliment that I got from I think it was Grant Gregory, Mr. Grant Gregory. I don't know if you know of
Yes.
him or not.
Yep.
He always gives me lots of support. He always watches my live streams and he pops on there time to time. But he's like, I could look at your comic book with no text what in there whatsoever, and it reads as a story. That's like,
Yep.
yes, thank God,
That's
because
what
that's
needs to happen. Hmm.
because I'm looking at it as a movie. Whenever I'm illustrating it, I'm just thinking of it as a movie. Like, how this is a silent movie. How can I convey the thoughts and the interactions going through people without any words? You know, like, and then it's almost like
I don't think we
it's
have
almost.
to have
Oh, sorry, go
text to know what's happening.
ahead.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's a perfect page. It's like you can kind of get what's going on. And this is the beauty of
Hmm.
a comic book because you have
Right.
both. Like you can
Hmm.
literally, and I mean, I got to be honest, there are comic books that I can say I've read, but I really haven't read. Right?
Hmm.
I didn't read every single
Yep.
narration or thought bubble.
Yep.
And I think
Yep.
that's what you're saying. I should be able to tell the same story that Thomas is trying to say,
Right.
but I don't need his text. It will
Right.
enhance the story, will elevate it. Correct?
I hear you there. Yep, yep, that's a great point. Yeah, so that's what it's almost. I know this is a horrible analogy, but I used to do. I used to not use color a lot. I think that was because I did like a lot of printmaking courses back in college. I was kind of a little bit intimidated by color, but I would always try to illustrate color through black and white. It's a weird thing. So it's like, oh, I want this to feel red. It's weird.
Mm.
So it's almost like, well, I want this story to be like conveyed through the illustrations. Like I want you to be able to understand and feel the conflict within the characters, the relationship within the characters, what's going on without having any words there. So that's what I'm always thinking of while I'm drawing, and it's a challenge. It's a big challenge. So you
It
just kind of
is.
yeah, but
Yeah.
it's full of challenges. But I feel like to get the ball rolling at the beginning of the project was a very difficult part too, because you're doing your character designs and you're doing your studies and everything, and you feel like you've almost got to go all the way back to the basics. So I've got references for figures. I've got references all around me. I've got tons of comic book like the area around me, you can't see it right now, but it's just littered with stuff. I just want to.
That's
Yeah,
what the comic book worlds are like. Why do you
yeah.
think that? So I forget who said it. I was talking to an artist, and he said basically, but the thing I think that YouTube has changed too is now you get to understand what our world is like, and we're fans. And they started, and he was talking about having, these essential Marvel books and these omnibus books in their office, and they would have like Batman Year One and Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen and Killing Joke and Mouse and all these different things that are these classics, because they're not classics for no reason. They're classics because they hit the marks. So let's look at these inspirational points and see what we can learn. I always qualify that for people who are new. Like I've gotten connected to a couple who are new into comics, and I'm like, okay, well, there are comics. Meanwhile, there's Dark Knight Returns.
Right.
There's Killing Joke. These are not the same.
Yeah.
And when you get them, you'll understand.